And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 61 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And tonight, folks, we wanted to talk to you guys about a very special topic near and dear to our hearts, and that is zeroing, or the zero, as some might like to call it. It's a mystical thing that many chase, but very few find. And you see what I did there?
There's an analogy there.
So, folks, before we get started on the topic, of course, with it being the holiday season, Christmas is what, next week? Yeah, next week. Yeah, dude, you gotta learn this.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, so next week, folks, some people do ask us, not a lot, but some people do ask us, what kind of shenanigans we get into before the show. We order gun parts and apparently watch Family Guy episodes. And when I order gun parts, I like to use our affiliate links, and you should too. They support the show and allow us to continue to watch Family Guy prior to going live on air every week for you guys. And Sophie and Jamesers make an appearance. He cannot hear me, but what's up, little buddy?
Hi.
He's stranger danger, man. He's not feeling it. Jamesers. James.
Holy smokes, who's that?
He did not like that.
Okay, well, that was meant to be cute.
Uncle TJ makes babies cry.
TJ makes babies cry. Perfect.
Uncle TJ makes babies cry. It's okay.
I broke him. Maybe
I still love you, little buddy.
No.
All right. So, Kent, before we get into it, what's new with you, man?
Apparently, we just broke my baby by trying to talk to him on a podcast. That wasn't a good idea.
This is why we have wives and adored, women in our lives, because we cannot be trusted to keep babies happy.
Ain't that the truth?
Right.
Ain't that the truth? So what's new with me? Tons of private classes. Some of them have spurred on tonight's topic of conversation. Headed down to AI/Target Monkey for Mr. Phil. Probably more Target Monkey and less AI, if I'm being honest.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Right. For the AVD class coming up at Apache Solutions in North Carolina in Yadkinville. If you happen to, for some reason, hear this, there's still like a slot or two left, I think. So maybe jump in on it. Maybe don't. I don't know. You probably should. Vigortraining.com is where you can find that. And let me see. Handgun Fundamentals is coming up on the 17th of January. That's an 8-hour class. And we are announcing 18 open enrollment classes over the next year.
Nice.
So, yeah, not to mention hosting duties and everything else. It's going to be a fun 2021. What about you, dude?
Dude, just like everybody else, work's been busy. Just like you, you've got your Green Mountain Defense has really taken off well. I'm proud of you for that. And similarly, things are getting busier and busier for me in my day job. Trying to launch some new service offerings in my day job. It's very taxing, very, very involved work. I'm dealing with a lot of different aspects of business development and business leadership, general counsel, legal teams, various vendors and stuff like that. It's been a whirlwind these last couple of weeks, but you know what? I'm thankful for it. I've been growing and maturing as a business leader and a businessman in the long run. And I'm thankful for it. It's stressful, but I'm thankful for it. So,
well, not that you didn't do any work before.
Right.
Because, but damn, are you busy, dude?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the goal is that each of these service lines is expected to net, each one of them is supposed to hopefully be, fingers crossed, be, $1 million a year or more business or service to the business that I run. So yeah, man, it's a lot. There's not a lot of people that can say that they've been this involved in what they do for, from a day-to-day basis. And it's really kind of humbling. You know, I look back on, I've been with this company for almost 6 years. And this was a big journey for me, honestly. This was, we often talk about the chapters in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And up to that point, I spent the better part of 15 years working in and around the Department of Defense, be it in the military, as a contractor, to some capacity. It was always, some type of involvement with, federal service to some degree, or law enforcement, or any combination thereof. And once I finished my degree, I updated my resume. I knew that the deployments kind of had to stop, with a young family and everything like that. We had just gotten pregnant with our daughter at the time. And I made the decision to resign from that life and do a complete career change in my early 30s. And it's a scary transition. It really is. So I went full civilian, and this company was kind enough to give me a shot. And I started out bottom of the barrel. It's very much a mailroom to boardroom type, progression as you look back on it. So I've been fortunate to have leadership in my company that believe in me, and they trust me, and they've been excellent mentors in the long run. And suffice it to say, though, it keeps my ass busy. That's for sure.
T-shirt idea. Never go full civilian.
You know what? I'll make it happen.
It's just, I don't.
Never go full civvy. T-shirts coming soon, folks. Stay tuned.
Yeah, just a thought. So tonight we are gonna kind of get into weeds just a little bit. Not too weedy, but definitely somewhat weedy.
Never go full weedy.
Never go full weedy. We're gonna talk about zeros. So what has been transpiring with me is that I've been teaching a lot of private lessons. And with private lessons come the needs of whoever happens to show up at that given point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a lot of student clientele come to me who have kind of different versions and ideas of what a zero really is on a firearm. And for one reason or another, they come to me with a couple of tropes and a couple of cliches, and just generally not having as good of an understanding of the zero of their weapon, whether it be a pistol or rifle or a shotgun, as I certainly would like them to, as capable civilian personal protector, defender types, right? So let's first define a zero. What do you think? What would you put down as like a defined zero?
So define zero. Okay.
A definition for the concept.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give you the layman definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is the point at which your point of aim is equivalent to your point of impact at a given distance.
Yeah, fair enough. So misconceptions abound with this. Number one being a general I don't know. What's the term? Too generous.
Would you call it an oversimplification?
Nah, it's just too generous of a standard when it comes to one of those things.
It's got a wide definition.
Yeah, well, so I'm with you. So point of aim equals point of impact at a known distance.
Yes.
With a known optic, a known sighting system, a known gun, the same ammunition, given all the other environmental impacts. And then let's define what that point of aim should really be for our given weapon system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many of these people that have been coming to me recently have had, hey man, listen, I need to do this and this and this and this with this rifle. And I say, hey, what's your zero? And they'll say 5,200, or they'll say 25,300, or 100 yards, or fucking 33 yards, or whatever they say. And I say, okay, with what ammo? And they'll say,
Yes.
right. They'll say,
Yes.
yeah. They'll say, well, 55 grain or 62 grain or whatever. No. What load? But beyond the what load question really is, what is an acceptable point of aim, point of impact convergence at any one of those given distances?
Well, so I think we do need to back up just a little bit, because I can see us going down a dangerous rabbit hole where following the misconception that only rifles can be zeroed. And
we're getting there.
And only optics can be zeroed. Those are two gross misconceptions in the industry, right? and not to point anyone out or to poke fun at anyone, but I see the most I see the heaviest abundance of this mentality being in the "I've been shooting since I was born" crowd.
Yeah.
My granddaddy, my grandpappy taught me how to shoot when I was 5 years old, and that's all I ever needed to know.
Yeah.
Right. And God love you folks, but you're wrong. Right. So let's at least give them the right frame of reference. Number one, zeroing, based on the definition that I gave and that we can all agree to be probably the simplest explanation of it, applies to iron sights. It applies to variable power optics. It applies to red dots.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It also applies to pistols, rifles, and shotguns. Technically, any firearm that has a sighting system has the capability to be zeroed.
Yeah.
So while to be fair, I think to keep, so we're not here all damn night. I think to keep the conversation fair, I think we can focus heavily on, the long guns and maybe even touch on the red dots, right? But yeah, it's just for point of reference, understand that these principles apply to all the different platforms.
So let's do it another way. Now that you pointed that out, I'm going to go through a list of common zeroing mistakes that I've been seeing.
Okay.
So, common zeroing mistake number one. Way too generous of a point of aim to point of impact at any given yardage or distance.
So break that down real quick. What do you mean by that?
So if you have, let's say, for example, you've determined that your zero, that you want it to be a 50, quote unquote, 200, which is really 52 something, 230, right. 225. I don't know. As it turns out, you actually have to find out. You have to go check.
Yeah.
But to start with, you want it to be zeroed at 50 yards. This is my zero.
Okay. No, that's fine. Okay.
Fine. If your zero is 50 yards, the circle, the inside X ring of a B8 is not a zero, right? The inside X ring of a B8 is what, 5 point some inches? The 10 ring, excuse me, not the X ring. The 10
ring. The 10 ring, yeah, something like that.
Right. If you're zeroing on a 10 ring of a B8, you have a 10 MOA gun. If that's what you're accepting for your zero. So if you've got shots high, low, left, right, center, down, back, and front, all over that little 5-inch circle, you don't have a zero. You have a basic rudimentary understanding of bullets and where they're going.
So I think there's a point that we need to clarify here as well. We also need to differentiate. And I know Cam is in the chat, a friend of the show, Cam Hayes. Hey, C494 on YouTube and Instagram. Go check him out, folks. Cam, we love you. And I'm probably going to butcher the shit out of this explanation. But we have to differentiate the difference. We have to explain the difference between precision and accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Precision is the tolerances to which a firearm is machined and assembled with the ammunition that it is given, and its ability to precisely and repeatably hit the same point of aim or same point of impact within a general margin of error based on the precision of that rifle, right? So if you remove any aspect of the human element, you lock that thing down to a vise, the precision of that equipment should deliver a certain expected standard, right? Cam, feel free to comment in the chat, but if I recall, just for a point of reference, military firearms are expected to hold a 4 MOA measurement or metric, Right. It could be 2 MOA. I think it's 4 MOA actually. So at 100 yards, the expected precision of a standard M4 carbine rifle it should be within a 4-inch circle at 100 yards.
Yes.
Where you butcher that is when you start looking at the accuracy aspect of it, which is when you start to introduce the human element into the equation. And while it is fair to say that the weapon is zeroed, it may not be accurized, right?
See, I don't even consider it zeroed. I mean, if you're talking, so at 50 yards now, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're zeroing to where every time you shoot, you hit a 5-inch circle at 50 yards, your gun is 10. You're hitting 10 MOA. The capabilities of the system, including the shooter, are 10 MOA.
Correct. I think that's a fair
right. That ain't going to cut it.
No, it's certainly unacceptable, right? It's certainly unacceptable. Zero, right? Something in that equation is amiss, and we could easily chalk it up to the human element, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the most common. When all things are created, all things being equal, the simplest answer is most often the correct one, right? So if we can generally agree that firearms are uniformly precise, maybe not precise to the same standards, but an AR-15 platform is going to be as precise as any other AR-15 platform, then the natural realization there is it's the shooter. But it could just be the ammo, right? As an example, my quote-unquote long-range AR, right, that's chambered in 5.56 with a 16.5-inch barrel, is a 1-in-7 twist. If I put anything less than 69 grains in it or 77 grain ammunition, it's going to be a 5-inch. It's going to be a 510 MOA gun, just because it's an imprecise equation because the ammo doesn't fit that equation properly, right? And I would argue that if that is in fact the case, then to your point, Kent, the weapon is not zeroed, or even more, to be more specific, incapable of being properly zeroed because I'm not matching the absolute precision expectations for that firearm.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, really. but for the basic dude who's going out to the range to zero his shit up, the most common, or one of the more common mistakes that I'm seeing is way too big a point of aim for a given distance.
Yes, I think that's fair.
And a lack of understanding of what that means relative. So I had a guy the other day, not even necessarily a student. I just end up being on the line with different people at different times, and I've seen a guy trying to zero his AR at 25 yards, and he's like, "Well, I mean that's a 2-inch group. I'll take 2 MOA."
Multiply by 4.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, kind of okay. It's really 8, but
be careful. Kent's taking his shoes off.
Yeah, exactly. So he does one of those things, and I'm like, hey, man, trying to be helpful. And this is a place that, people know me and stuff. And this guy was talking to me about this. He wasn't just, I don't just unsolicitedly trance down the line like a dick wagon and go involve myself in somebody else's problems unnecessarily.
Well, not all the time anyway.
Not all the time. But in this case, this poor guy, he says to me, he goes, well, that should be pretty good, And he's telling me, it's 2 MOA and blah, blah, blah. And he's shooting at 8-inch steel at 100 yards and missing off a bench. And I'm like, I mean, you're shooting an 8-inch steel. You have a 2 MOA system at 25. So you have an 8 MOA gun, which means any little impacts or imparting of human error at all at that distance. And we're screwed.
Right.
Plus, he doesn't understand where to hold at 100 with a 25-yard zero. Add those two things together, and we have misses on steel at 100 yards.
Yeah, exactly. So let's take a quick sidetrack because I want to ask you this question because I know there's probably going to be people listening to this episode and asking the same question to themselves.
Okay. So
what? Right? What is the so what factor? Why is the zero important?
Well, for starters, we are sending ballistics out into the universe, right? And we are ultimately responsible for the terminus of everything that leaves our gun. So it'd be a pretty good idea to have an understanding of what the flight path of a projectile is, whether it's a 9mm coming out of a pistol, whether it's 8 or 9 pellets of buckshot, or whether it's a slug, or whether it's a rifle round. It'd be a pretty good idea to be able to articulate where that bullet was at any given point in time from muzzle to target, wherever that might be. So that's the, overly technical, cool guy internet answer. The even simpler answer is...
I think that's the perfect answer.
What?
Right? If we can, let's throw the gun shop counter talk out. If everything that comes out of that gun's got a little lawyer attached to it, you think you might want to exercise some due diligence and be able to predict as best as you can, to the best accuracy that you can, the exact flight path of that projectile. It
would seem to be prudent to be able to do so.
Now, if you got something coming out of your gun that's slicing like the dude on Caddyshack, there's a problem.
Oh God!
That was yeah, that's the problem with your boy, man. He was pointing in the wrong direction. That's why he couldn't hit that 2-inch circle.
Oh God! So when on a more practical matter, I'd sure like to be able to hit shit, right?
Right.
So if I don't know where things are, perfect. Square range, blue sky, 60-degree day with a bench and all the time in the universe, I can't figure out where the rounds are going. How in the hell can I expect to pick this thing up and, go Civil War II electric boogaloo with it, or take it deer hunting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or take it to a match? And a lot of these guys want to get into two-gun, right? In our two-gun matches, you got to hit clay birds at a 50-yard berm. I promise you, moving quick, running and gunning, and back and forth, and pistol to shotgun to rifle. That'd be 3-gun. But in our two-gun matches, you shoot up close, you dump your pistol, you bail out like a bastard, and you sprint back to the 50-yard line and shoot clay birds. Your heartbeat's pumping, and all that kind of stuff's going on. A claybird is not an easy shot at 50 yards when the reticle's doing a freaking
when the reticle is breathing as heavily as you are.
Yeah. I was just I forgot the actor's name. Who's the actor with the handshakes and the coffee cup on Family Guy and it goes to shit? Never mind.
I don't know what actor on Family Guy you're talking about, but Michael J. Fox comes
to
mind.
They make fun of Michael J. Fox.
Oh, okay. That's fucked up, but fair.
Well, just if your reticle's doing the Michael J, as it is, and your whole system's only capable of 8 MOA on a good day.
Let's get a little bit more family friendly with it. When you're panting like the fat kid at the roller rink.
God, I hated the roller rink. I'm gonna tell you, I hated the roller rink. But no,
for the millennials that might have stumbled across this show,
right.
This was a place where we would not socially distance and embarrass ourselves on shoes with wheels. And no, not the ones that just come out of your sneakers.
Yes, they're called roller skates. Yeah. So that's my first commonly made mistakes. Number one being, scale down the size of that target. Yeah. So
too much acceptable slop even after your rifle is zeroed.
Yeah.
If you're listening on the podcast, there were air quotes around those.
So we'll go with dot mil. Cam just jumped in to save our rear ends. Says for the rifle, rack grade rifles 4 MOA. For the M110, it's 2 MOA. So that means that I'm going to go with 2 MOA. That's what I zero my guns to for class purposes and stuff, or as close as I can get to shooters. That means that for a 50-yard zero, we're shooting a 1-inch paster. Okay? I think that's a pretty reasonable. What are you laughing at?
Cam.
Oh.
Apparently acceptable slop is his stage name. Hashtag t-shirt idea.
Yes.
That's happening. That is absolutely happening.
That needs to happen. But no, seriously. So, put up a 1-inch paster. And here's the deal, man. We'll give you the 1-inch paster. And if you do the 25-yard zero, and if you can stay barely ass in the paster at the 25-yard zero on the 1-inch paster, you know what? You're at 4 MOA. If you can do it at 50 yards and you do that for your 50-yard zero, now you're at 2 MOA. If you can do that shit at 100 yards, now you're at 1 MOA.
Mm-hmm.
The worst of those scenarios is the 25-yard onto the 1-inch paster, right. Which means that if you wanted to get your shit squared away to a true 4 MOA rack grade military compliant setup, quote, 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 air quotes, all you got to do is hit a fucking paster at 25 yards.
It's funny you mentioned that, because even with the military's, zero qualification, if you go to a zero range, they zero at 25. It's 25 meters to be specific. There's a few feet of difference there between yards and meters, but the concept is the same, and your target is equivalent to a 300-meter target.
Mm-hmm.
So the little black silhouette that you're aiming at on a military zero target, which you can easily download on the internet, they're freely available, right? That you set that at 25 meters, and that represents a 300-meter target. That means the expectation is that at 300 meters, they should all be within I think it's a 1.5-inch circle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the specifics of that, I'm pretty sure it's a 1.5-inch circle. But yeah, at 25 meters, you have to be able to maintain that with iron sights. Right? So let your conscience be your guide with expected military standards, because they're not all they are military standards, but that doesn't mean they're the best standards.
The bottom line is, for most known distance ranges, especially around here, most places have 100-yard flat square range. Some even Kent's range. Yeah.
That's a goddamn sniper shot in Baghdad for Kent.
Yes, it is. No, I've been doing some 400 recently at a place.
Holy shit!
Well, the 400-yard berm may or may not have gotten decommissioned by yours truly 10 minutes after being a board member at this place.
That's why we can't have anything fun.
Well, I don't like berms at 400 yards that have skylight in them that include roof lines of other people's houses. So I said no. That's no longer there. And
fair.
No, this is not the place where I've been a board member for a long time. This is a new venture for me.
Ken sucked the fun out of the current place that he's a board member of a long time ago.
I wish I could argue that. Oh, God.
No running in the halls. Anyway.
Yeah. So no, but lesson number one, scale down that acceptable target size. So get rid of those 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, that old grandpappy routine. If it'll hit a pie plate, it'll hit a deer. Get rid of the 8-inch pie plate. Get rid of the 6-inch circle. Get rid of the 5.5-inch circle. Get rid of the 2-inch circle unless you're shooting at 50 at a minimum, and probably should be shooting at 100.
I mean, the reality of the situation is, especially with a variable power optic, you should be using a 2-inch circle at 100 yards just so you could make sure you're aiming at the target, like that specific spot. It's easier for your eye to pick up, but like the acceptable standard should be a very tight group within that 2-inch circle, not just hit the 2-inch circle. Right.
Yeah. And
another trick I picked up from Cam, who takes his little pasters and he draws a 2-inch box around him so he can see that point of aim clearer at the target.
I just stick a paster in the middle of a B8. I take a white paster and stick that fucker in the middle of a black B8.
You only shoot pistol though.
No. I've been shooting significantly more rifle, which is why we're on this rant in the first place.
Right. Of course. I got to give you shit, man.
I shoot the thing with, technically the rifle I am shooting is a pistol anyway, but that's another whole fucking, and it's got an SBA 3 on it. So
let's not go that route.
It's going to get deported here someday. Apparently they're going to come for it. All right, so mistake number one, too big an acceptable target. Mistake number two, not reading the goddamn manual for the optic and the reticle that you are attempting to zero. Right?
Mhm.
So this is one of my favorites. I just had a guy recently with I'll give a quick shout out to Primary Arms. They're good enough to send me out the 1 to 8 Platinum Series ACSS jobby. And in the manual for that, it very clearly states that it wants 100 yard zero at the tip of the chevron for XM193 out of a 16-inch gun. Very, very clearly states that in the manual. For the rest of the reticle to line up, that's what it wants for a 16-inch gun. Now, I had to get with Cam, and I had to do some playing around and make determinations on whether a 50 or a 100-yard zero would be more appropriate for my application because I was shooting it out of a 10.3 gun. And the manual for the reticle didn't go down to 10.3. It stopped at 14 inches. As it turns out, the reticle matches up better for a 50-yard zero with that scope. Cam was good enough to do some beautiful mind math in his head while cutting granite, and I would assume juggling with one foot because his math's like that. Mine don't. But I happen to have gone through this whole rigmarole here recently. So I'm on the range, and here, lo and behold, homie shows up with an ACSS reticle and a 16-inch gun, an XM193. And I ask homie, I say, hey, man, what's your zero? He says, 50 yards. I always do the 50, 200-yard zero. So, okay. I said, kind of sucks that your reticle doesn't match up then, doesn't it? Without missing a beat, he goes, no, it should. I said, well, it should or it does? Or because those two are different things, as it turns out. And my man proceeds to tell me, he goes, no, it does. I said, it does because you shot it, or it does because you think that? As it turns out, it's because you think that. And I said, well, hey, man, let's prove that point. And no. I said, hey, did you ever bother to read the manual for your scope? And he gets that sheepish dude look on his face where his chin tucks to his chest and he starts kicking the dirt. Oh, shucks. I'm like, you never did you? And he goes, does it say to do something, how to zero it? I said, sure do. Pull up on the inner Googles and show it to him. He's like, son of a bitch, I didn't know that. There you go. My point being, there's a lot of dudes walking around with a lot of different reticles and a lot of different scopes and a lot of different setups that probably never read the manual and therefore don't actually know what the demarcations in their BDC, first of all, what distances they're even supposed to be for, assuming that it matches up.
I think a really good question, because I learned a valuable lesson this past weekend.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Especially with regard to reading the manual. It's important to understand that the manual might not always include that information, might not include all the information that you might need, especially if you're going to be a serious shooter. So I recently took my Ruger American out in 308.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And on that, I have one of the older Ride-On Optics scopes that's 4 to 16 power. So I recently invested in a decent ballistics app, Strelok Pro. It's like $10 on the Apple App Store. Now, I'm not going to mess with the MOA, but there's going to be a visual aid here. And for those listening on the podcast, I'll try to explain it. One of the cool features of this app is it gives you a graphical representation of the target size relative to the distance that you're calculating, and your reticle as it would position based on your MOA adjustments. It's even got a cool little turret that you can adjust, and you can watch the target rise and fall in line with your crosshairs, right? Now, this is not a BDC reticle. This is a MOA fixed distance reticle, right? So all of the hash marks, or from the crosshairs to each of the hash marks, is 2 MOA, right? So there's none of this BDC shit where it's, the distances from one level to the next are different because of they take into account bullet velocity. Okay. So Kent, it might be difficult for you to see, but this is This is my crosshairs at 150 yards, and this is zeroed at 150 yards for the app, right? I'm trying to fight the glare here, folks. Bear with me. What is that number at the first hash mark down?
279.
279 yards, right?
Yep.
This is at 10 power. Now, all I'm going to adjust is the zoom. I'm going to crank it all the way up to 16 power. What's the number now?
236.
Even your zoom could change your expected point of impact, especially at a given distance, right?
Which is why.
That's why it just reinforces the reasoning to why you should read about your manual,
right?
Read the manual about your scope, right? This is obviously more common with first focal plane optics, where the reticle does not change with the zoom. The reticle will stay the same size regardless of the level that you zoom into. With second focal plane scopes, this is not the issue. That's one of the reasons why second focal plane scopes are often favored, especially in the long range game.
Yeah. What app is that, by the way?
Strelok Pro, Strelok. And the cool thing is they got a bunch of different reticles depending on your scope, and they update it regularly. So you can find all the ride-on optics in there. You can find all the primary arms optics in there, loophole, all that stuff.
I think you fucked up first and second focal plane.
Second focal plane first. Yes. Thank you, Cam. Reverse that. So second focal plane will stay the same. First focal plane will actually grow as you zoom in.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cam. I knew what app. I just wanted him to say it online so people could hear it. So it's Strelok Pro.
Strelok, yeah. Strelok. There's a free version, of course, if you want to be a baller on a budget. But compared to some of the other apps that are out there, I think one of the more popular ones is I want to say Ballistic Concept, something like that. Applied Ballistics. That's the one I'm thinking of. That one's $30 and has a very steep learning curve and surprisingly had very negative reviews on the App Store. Probably because it is so complex. People probably just don't understand enough about long-range shooting and ballistic calculators to use it properly. But when I saw it was the one Cam was using, I was like, okay, that good enough for Cam, good enough for TJ.
Yeah, well, that's pretty fair. Let's see. Other common zeroing mistakes. Assuming that the same grain weight of ammunition will shoot the same in a given rifle. So if I say to you, hey man, what's your zero? And you say 50 yards, and I say, okay, with what? And you say with 55 grain, that ain't good enough, man.
Nope, all the way down to the manufacturer and preferably the lot number.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be real with you. I'm not quite so lot number crazy, because it's just not possible to stick.
Yeah, at least down to the manufacturer and model of model serial number, right? So, American Eagle Full Metal Jacket 55 grain. Yeah. American Eagle 55 grain hollow point bow tail.
Yeah.
Which I don't even think there is such a thing from American Eagle, from the various generic ammo dealers out there, or manufacturers out there. But yeah, even that. Let me put you this. So I do some reloading once in a while, right?
I done do some reloading.
I done did some making my own bullets. Even changing something as simple as the primer brand can affect your flight path and your trajectory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if that alone is something that can change the way that ammunition performs, or the way that gun performs, or the zero of your gun, what do you think completely changing brands of bullets will do?
Yeah. So, I mean, good, better, best, right? Good would be my shit is zeroed with Federal XM193. I'm not saying Federal XM193 is the best. I'm just saying make and specific designation of ammunition. That's what my shit's zeroed with.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be the best. Ideal. Next best would be, hey man, I got a 50-yard zero with XM193. All right, well at least then there's gonna be some variations in other manufacturers, M193, XM193, blah 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 blah. But you ought to be somewhere within the stratosphere, generally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an absolute fair assessment. Yeah, I think we need to avoid discouraging listeners, right? 55 grain at the end of the day is still a 55 grain projectile. If you change your ammo, it's not going to completely throw your zero out the window and you're going to have to go back to square one. But you might be hitting low left by an inch or two or high right by a half an inch. Like there's going to be variations, but you'll at least be in the ballpark.
Right. Certainly what we can't do, and what I do see is we see guys, hey, for whatever reason, they zero with M855, let's say, because that's what they had available at the time. And then they turn around and they say, now I'm going to switch to Spear Lawman because that's 62 grain. That ought to be the same. And then, well, XM193 ought to be in the ballpark. Until we're done effing around, we have a rifle that shoots 3 different ammunition, three different ammunition types. And long since ago have we forgotten which one it was zeroed to. And worse yet, it probably weren't never zeroed to one of them correctly in the first place. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's absolutely right.
Which leads me to a best practice, which would simply be this, right? If you can get your grubby little paws on I'm going to call it 400 rounds of something, right? Whatever that something might be, the best possible defensive ammunition choice for your given blaster. You get yourself 400 rounds of XM193 from American Eagle, and that's what you're going to use. Not saying that's the world's greatest defensive ammunition. I'd like to see you have 400 rounds of Lawman.
We're looking for consistency, folks. Consistency.
A year ago, I would have bitched about Lawman being $1.50 a shot, but now it's all $1.50 a shot, so you might as well make it whatever you can get your paws on. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Spend 100 rounds really refining your zero of that shit, whatever that might be. Work it out, shoot it at all the various distances. If it's going to be a 50-yard zero, shoot it at 50, shoot it at 25, shoot it up close. Really get an idea of what your offsets, your holdovers and hold unders are at various distances. Have that shit figured out. Then take them other 300 rounds that you stashed away, and there's 10 magazines worth of Apocalypto Doomsday ammo, and make that the serious shit for that rifle. And then, sure, homie, if you want to run, cheetah flip drills at 10 yards with some other ammo, then rock out with your socks out and, accept the offset or the variables. I'd rather see you do that than just assume that any 62 grain or any 55 grain or any, various thing is just going to work.
You see that a lot in 3-gun, right? Guys who, especially if you're in a 3-gun league or your local club is known to have long distance targets for a rifle. And, for USPSA for traditionally 3-gun nation, before it went belly up, was I think max like 400 yards is what you would expect to shoot. And you're expected to hit a 2 MOA target for that respective distance, right? Guys would take their AR and zero it for the premium stuff that they knew could hit accurately at that distance and precisely at those distances. So you're looking at like 69 grain, 77 grain, 79 grain, like hand rolled precision ammunition. And then for the hoser stages where you just, spraying and praying, doing a mag dump, inside of 25 yards. Yeah, they'd throw some cheap shit 55 grain in there because they're expected to hit a standard size IPSC target within 25, 50 yards with a rifle.
And the 3-gun nation rules are 2 anywhere on paper.
Right.
At
So
20 yards, it's like Crack. Look, got it. Keep going.
Or one, if you're using the red and black dirty bird target, you're talking about one in the red, which is an 8-inch circle, or two anywhere from the black on in, which is a 10-inch circle within 50 yards at best for a hoser stage, right?
Right.
Everything else is close. Everything else is closer. So, but the idea being is that they knew that their weapon was zeroed for 77 grain premium hand-loaded ammunition. They knew the velocities. They knew their standard deviation, their extreme spread. They knew all that stuff, right?
Yep.
So, but I'll tell you what, when the metal meets the meat and it's time to engage a 6-inch or 12-inch target at 400 yards, or an 8-inch target at 400 yards, they're hitting it every time.
Yep. Okay, let's see. This is going to get.
Can I bring up a rule or a failure, right? Not understanding height over bore offset.
I was going to do that one later, but do it. I like it.
Well, no, because it seems like a good tangent, right? Because of where we're at. We started talking about 3-gun and shit, right? So if you're zeroed at 100 yards and the center line of your optic is 1.8 inches above the center line of your bore, if the target is at 25 yards and you aim dead on, you're probably going to be a bit low or closer. You're going to be low because you're not taking into account the fact that you've got 2 inches of real estate from the center line of your bore to the center line of your optic. So understand your offset, understand what that does at very distance inside 100. Let's say you go with a 100-yard zero, hell, even a 50-yard zero, right? Understand what that's going to do when you go to, in the white knight, fantasy land of being the lone good guy surrounded by Black Bart and his minions, and they've got and they've got Miss Daisy held hostage.
Wait, your dog?
What was the girl's name from Dudley Do-Right?
No. That's all I need.
Yeah, okay, so they've got my Mastiff held hostage.
Dude, I will fuck all of them up if they've got their Mastiff held hostage.
And they're holding a 160-pound dog at head level, and you've got to take that thread the needle shot through their eyeball, and they're at 10 yards. Maybe understanding that offset's important.
Yeah, that sound that you just made is the sound that Daisy's going to make when Captain B8 fucking zings one, turns the eyeball, and hits her in the ear. She's going to go, that did feel good. Oh, my God.
I like to report that her ears have been toughened through the last several months, damn near over a year, of Georgie the Corgi chewing on them every night.
Her ears might be bulletproof.
At this point, I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah, no, dude,
it toughens the skin, man. It toughens.
That is so true. Optical offsets, like, that's real, and people they neglect this. They neglect to figure in angles. They neglect to figure in offset. One of the things I'm apt to do in a rifle class is to have the students shoot at a partial exposure, no shoot hostage target where only the head in the upper left or only the head in the upper right shoulder of the threat target are exposed. And I'll have them shoot that shot at the IDPA down zero circle, of which there is now only a half moon shape that might be, maybe a quarter of the overall thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have them take that shot at 17 yards.
Yeah, I mean it's a really good it's a great example. It's a great exercise, right?
Yeah.
And if you wanted to throw a curveball in there, make them do it through a Vickers barricade or a VTAC barricade where they have to hold the rifle at a 45-degree cant.
Yeah. People seem to forget that offset's still a thing, even if the rifle's laying on its side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but offset, it's a big deal, especially if we're looking at the defensive world, right?
The other thing a lot of people don't realize is that generally, a lot of times, those cool little BDCs that are in your guns, oftentimes that first hash mark is just enough to offset for your offset up close.
Mm-hmm.
So
funny how that works.
If you've got a BDC and you've got a 50-yard zero on a Vortex Razor HD 1-6, you can hold for that second hash and you'll eye socket that dude.
But it only works if
you're zeroed square away in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So see, it's kind of funny. It's almost like this whole zero thing is like the cornerstone,
right?
Like this whole construct. It's amazing how that works.
Building blocks or pillars. Stuff like that.
Exactly. So I've got a question for you because I want to move this. I want to move this conversation along. Because you and I were on the phone earlier talking about tonight's show. You and I got on the conversation of shotguns.
Oh, sure. Where's Lee when you need him? Lee was on here. Now I don't know where he went. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll actually turn this over to you. Is in what points do you zero a shotgun?
So,
in what ways can you zero a shotgun? Are there optics for shotguns? Are there better? Like, are we putting a 1-6 on a 12 gauge?
Sure.
I mean, why not, right?
That'd be kind of fun. I might do that now. So there's patterning, right? Where we're simply trying to see how tight of a group we can get to come out of the barrel of a shotgun, right? Now, shotguns are often patterned using chokes, generally for bird hunting, for skeet or trap shooting, et cetera, et cetera. We want a certain size pattern at a certain distance for a certain moving target, et cetera, et cetera. It's generally done with birdshot, et cetera. You do need to pattern buckshot out of your shotgun to know, hey, do you have that 9th pellet flyer? Are you keeping all 8 pellets within a reasonable, respectable target zone? What the hell is a reasonable and respectable target zone for a shotgun and at what distance? And then what does the zero look like on a shotgun? So, there's a couple different versions of this. Number one, you can zero a shotgun for slugs if you have an application for shooting such. Shotguns that would be zeroed for slugs would be like, the Pennsylvania deer hunting shotgun, right? PA still has some zones and some deer management units and some special areas that, due to population densities, are shotgun only. Half of New York is shotgun only, I think. So there's plenty of deer hunters on planet Earth running around with a shotgun that's zeroed for slugs at 25, 50, or 100 yards, depending on who you ask, right? What I would tell you is that zeroing process is almost the exact same as the zeroing process for a regular ass rifle. Right? Now we get to a defensive realm for a shotgun where we're going to be doing something like throwing a RMR on the top of a 1301 or a 590 or an 870 or something like that. To me, the ideal zero for a defensive shotgun would be, hey, man, I need to know where the center of my buckshot pattern is at acceptable self-defense distances, right? Call it 20 yards. It's easy, a lot of times it's done at 25 just because that's what you have on a known distance range at most places. But, I'm going to do something akin to a pistol walkback drill with my shotgun, where I'm going to zero point of aim, point of impact on an IPSC target to where I'm getting an acceptable group, about the size of a tennis ball. And I'm going to walk that thing back until I'm getting out to about the size of a small, sausage dinner plate kind of thing, little 6-inch plate. And if I'm getting rounds much outside of that, I'm going to stop. And that's going to be my absolute max distance for that shotgun.
Right.
Now, federal flight control is a thing, so we can get better results with shotguns that have wadding specifically designed to keep the patterns together. 8 pellets better than 9 pellet because for some reason there's a 9th pellet flyer that has to do with how the pellets try to get out of the end of the barrel.
For those wondering, we've done several episodes on this topic.
Right. Yeah.
Anything with Ashton Ray and
Anything
360
with-
performance.
Anything with Ashton in it, right? But the general idea would be, man, if you've got an RMR on your shotgun, don't zero that bitch for, let's say, 25 or 50 yards with a slug that you're never going to shoot in your house, and then not go verify, hey, what does this do at 15 yards with the given load of buckshot that I intend to use?
Mm-hmm.
You will be sorely disappointed if that's how you approach it, because
Right.
you're gonna be zing-zanging some pellets off into outer space that you don't know about.
Yeah, we're dealing essentially with the same rule here with shotguns that we were dealing with rifles, right?
Yep.
Known ammo, quality ammo, right? And here's the thing with quality ammo, folks. It's not only just the concept of known given expansion and performance, terminal ballistics, when it impacts soft tissue, but it's also about the quality of the manufacturing. So when we say quality ammo, we mean quality to every intent, to every intent that we possibly can, and that includes the uniformity and the consistency in the manufacturing process that's going to give you repeatable outcomes.
Yeah. So bottom line being, buy once, cry once. No, Cam, zeroing is not a crutch for the talentless. Stop it. Zeroing is a mark of the professional. Yes. So yeah,
probably the most pretentious thing you've said on this show.
Yes. Yeah. Just one of those things that you want to keep in mind, and then we can go down the ribbity rabbit hole of the goddamn red dot zero. So you can do two versions of this. You could skip the next 10 minutes of me talking and just go find one of Jedi's videos, and that'd probably be better for you. And if you want to listen to me ramble for 10 minutes, here's the bottom line. As it turns out, in order to be able to zero a pistol with a red dot on it, or iron sights, by the way, those can be zeroed, you have to be able to shoot well enough to judge whether it's the gun or it's you, right? Mm-hmm. So the zeroing process taught to us by Mr. Jedi is essentially stand your ass on your hind legs on the 10-yard line, put up a 1-inch paster on that sumbitch, and stand there and zero that red dot until, with your chosen carry load, you are consistently hitting the 1-inch paster at 10 yards. The end. That is your pistol zero.
Yeah, spoiler alert, that's one of the first things you're going to do in his class.
Right. So that is the zero. And I'm not going to even bother with the argument between the 25 and the 10-yard zero. Because the point is, if you can't stand your ass on your hind legs and hit a paster at 10 yards, you damn sure can't do it at 25.
Right.
25 mo better, especially for shooting 25-yard B8s all the time, longer range pistol shooting, etc. I'd rather a 25-yard zero. For our application with a pistol, the 10-yard works just fine. Yes, there's holdovers and hold-unders with pistols too, which means that if you have a 10-yard zero with most ammunition and so forth and a 9mm pistol, in order to be getting the 10 ring on a B8, you're going to be aiming a little bit low.
Well, and the idea too, I would argue that it's just as important with a pistol, because the impact at distance, or I should say the impact on the bullet's trajectory at distance, is far more exaggerated with a pistol than it is with a rifle. You can expect a similar outcome, that be a significant drop in the round's trajectory if you're zeroed at 10 yards to shooting with that zero at 25, the same that you would see for a rifle zeroed at 100 yards shooting at 200. It can be surprising when you really think about it, because you don't expect the distance increase of a mere 15 yards to have a similar, I'm using the term explicit, similar effect or outcome that it would have with something that's a 100-yard distance. You would expect a drop in your point of impact if zeroed at 100 when shooting at 200. You double the distance, it makes sense, right? 10 yards doubled is at least 20, and you're shooting at 25 yards. The bullet drop is going to be it's going to be there. It might not be it's not an exact correlation, right? If your rifle drops 2 inches at 200 yards, your bullet might drop 1.5 inches or 2 inches, right? At 25 yards, it depends, but there's still going to be a drop, and you need to compensate for that.
Not always drop, though.
Not always drop, right?
Right. Sometimes it's not drop. Like in the instance of the pistol at 10 yards versus 25, it's actually still on its way up at 25.
Right. But you get the idea. There's going to be a deviation in the point of impact is what I'm getting.
There's going to be a vertical point of impact versus point of aim deviation. Yes, there is.
You said it better. You said it better than I could.
Yeah. That's because I get paid to say this shit like 10 times a week now, it feels like. So, anyway, bottom line being, like, know where the thing hits with the thing. Let's talk about other common zero failures. And this one's agnostic. I don't give a shit, pistol, rifle, or shotgun. If the shit that you're trying to zero is rattling all loose on the top of the thing you're trying to zero it on, it ain't gonna fucking zero. Know what your torque specs are supposed to be. Know what Loctite is. Know how to mount that scope. Know how to mount that dot. Know how to mount them sights. Whatever. And if you don't know how, bring it to somebody who does. Show up with a cup of coffee, $100 bill. Shut the hell up. Hand it to that guy and let him do it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. I can't tell you how many times you see shit. Homeboy in my last rifle class, his gun was just yeeting rear sights out into the universe. He had this rear sight on his gun that looks like it was for an airsoft gun. And that motherfucker, I was like, dude, if your rear sight hits me in the face one more time, like, you know, oh, do you think? And then he went to put it back on. He's like, do you think it's still zeroed? I'm like, I don't think it ever was. To be honest with you, but we'll find out. Yeah, what exactly is torque, and can you measure that? Torque is expressed in inch pounds or foot pounds. Simply the amount of pressure you put on a turned screw, right? Is that a TJ? Give me a machinist definition for torque, would you?
How tight you done turned that screw?
How many ugga-duggas you put on to them there? What do you call them? On the witchy digits on the wheels on the truck there? Yeah, them things. So yeah, torque is just an express measurement of inch pounds or foot pounds. And there's this thing called the Wheeler fat wrench, which is a freaking torque wrench, which can be adjusted so that you know how many inch pounds you're putting on your screws there. Cam uses the German method, good and tight.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I like ugga-duggas for the lug nuts. 1 ugga-dugga, 2 ugga-dugga, 3 ugga-dugga. Anyway, that's a mechanic's joke. Jordan says, I thought on a scope mount, you just tighten it till the rings touch.
Your mileage may vary. I would not recommend it.
No, wouldn't recommend it. Or
so there are some questions coming in from our friend MG in the chat. I want to go ahead and talk about this a little bit. Yeah. So when we're dealing with an AR pistol, right? So 10-inch barrel, essentially anything shorter than a 16-inch barrel, right? Let's just, for sake of argument, right? But preferably out of a 10-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch barrel. The 36-yard zero is generally what I recommend from when you're shooting from any configuration that is going to have less than expected velocities, based on the common principles and understanding of a 5,200 yard zero, right? So all my AR pistols are zeroed at 36 yards because that is more of a 36 yard, 100 yard zero, especially if you look at the common applications for something like a 10.5 inch AR pistol, self-defense capabilities, close quarters. I'm doing air quotes again, close quarters expectations, anything inside of 100 yards is what can be expected. So zeroing at 36 is that happy medium in between. As a matter of fact, one of the common capabilities, at least with the ACSS reticle, with the chevron and the the vertical stick that comes out from the first crosshair or first hash mark below the chevron, the tip of that point below the chevron or that vertical line is zeroed at 36 yards, and the tip of the chevron would be on at 100. So it's keeping it in that ballpark. Did I just hurt your brain?
I'm having a stroke. You're not wrong. Actually, so let's see. For one thing, I have never personally tried the 36-yard zero because I have never had a combination of optic and reticle and whatever that required it, right?
Right. It translates well for red dots too.
I was just going to say,
it translates well for red dots, but where the 36-yard zero came from originally derived from the zeroing process on a limited range or limited distance range with the ACSS reticle. Yeah,
I always on a red dot on a short AR, I always 0 to 25. I've never tried a 36. I will tell you though,
it's closer. The deviation when, let's say, you actually engaged out to 100 yards, right? Just sake of argument, you actually engaged out to 100 yards. That 36-yard zero will be that much closer and reduce the margin of error at 100 as opposed to a 25-yard zero.
See, I liked it. I liked the 50 for. I don't know. It's just I've always had good luck, and I'm running a freaking 1-8 on a goddamn 10-inch gun with a suppressor, so I'm a little different. But like on my little pistol caliber carbines and my SIG MPXs and 9mm and my little short stuff, I just go for a 25. I can't imagine why it would be that big a deal different, though. Here's the bottom line with this, right? I don't give a shit if you zero it at 28.327 yards.
Yep.
Know that sumbitch is zeroed at 28.327 yards with that ammo, and know where the hell that combination hits from muzzle to wherever max distance is, and be done, right?
Yep.
So whether I'm going to stray away from. I'm going to stray from arguing over a specific 1-0 versus the other and just be like, man, you know what? If my man came to me and I said, hey, dude, what do you got on there? And he said, I got me a 36-yard zero, and here's why. And he hit me with all the stuff you just hit me with. And I took a target stand and threw it out there at 36 yards, and I put up a 1-inch paster. And he printed me.
Expect him to hit it.
And not only that, but he prints me a group where 4 of them are on the paster, and he's got 1 high left flyer. I'm going to give that dude a fucking fist bump, and I'm going to go, let's move on to other stuff, man. Let's see what that thing does at 100. Pow, ding. Yeah. Oh, look at that. You are on at 100. Good shit.
Yeah, and that's the reality of the situation, right? So let's get to the logical fallacy of zeroing. What are we on, number 5 or 6 now? Yeah. Right? So let's get to the next logical fallacy, and that is take the generalizations of the idea of a 5,200-yard zero as gospel and flush it down the toilet. Because now we can generally understand and accept that something zero based on, from an AR platform, 1 zeroed at 50 yards is expected to be also zeroed at 200. Expected being the key word. Until you have actually taken out and confirmed it. If you are zeroed at 50, you're only zeroed at 50, period. Yeah. Until you have actually confirmed it, you are not zeroed at 200 either. You're not also zeroed at 200.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely correct. What else do I have written down here?
But no, I mean, dude, that's a great point though. Like, know your zero. Like it is your responsibility to know your firearm.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% your responsibility. I get a lot of advice from Cam. Love him to death. I confirm. I trust but verify. Mm-hmm. Right? Because not even just because I think his data is bullshit. He's been dead on right with everything so far for me. But I would be completely at fault if something went wrong. Or also, I need to confirm that his outcome with his equation, which includes his shooting ability, his skill set, is going to be is the same as mine, right? We have to assume that there may be a difference there, and it's up to me to determine that. So he tells me that his zero and his data, his reload charts and all that stuff, X equals Y equals Z. I need to, okay, then I should expect that same outcome, but I need to confirm that it does. I have to do the homework.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give everybody an example, like, so Cam, or Kent, too many in my friends list. But Kent, you said quite astutely, get 400 rounds of quality ammo, take 100 rounds to the range, really get to know your platform, and then save that last 300 for, your proverbial doomsday scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I go to the range, if I'm having a long range rifle day, I will take 50 to 100 rounds with me, depending on what guns I'm shooting, right? It will take me several hours to get through all 50 of those rounds.
This is funny because I was about ready to go there. So the next thing I have written down is literally stop being in such a fucking hurry.
Yep.
And this one, dude, I can't tell you how many people, they come hammering up to the range. They got 20 minutes of daylight left. And it is their intention to, I'm going to make sure this thing's on because deer season opens tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, you got 20 minutes. You're going to make sure it's on what? 20 whole minutes, 20 whole ass minutes to sit down, set up your bench, set up your freaking rest, do your whole thing, set your target up, get your target in a known distance, measure the fucking distance your target's at. This one's hilarious to me. I mean, we zero these guns all the time. I'm going to pick on Justin here a minute just because he's my favorite person in the world who doesn't know what distance is. If I stand Justin on a pistol range and I say, Justin, walk back to the 20-yard line, that motherfucker will walk to the gate. He will walk to the he does not know distances. He just doesn't. Yardages and downs and distance just aren't a thing for him. And you'll see, like, you go out to the West Shore is a perfect example of this. We have a 100-yard range and a quote 50-yard range because that's what we call it. Our 50-yard range just so happens to be not 50 damn yards. It's 50 yards from the very end of the berm to the very end of where the most furthest distance possible shooting position is. But that is eroded away over time off the back. So now there's not even a bench truly at 50 yards.
Right.
There's a bench at 43 and a half yards. Dude, that's different. That's not a 50. You can't zero at 50 on that berm. You just can't do it.
No. You can zero, it just won't be at 50.
Right. or it's the other bay. You got the 100-yard bay, right? And we have dudes just go out with a target stand and they walk about halfway and sit it down and they go, that's probably 50 because it's halfway. Oh my God, get a rangefinder. Rangefinders are cheap.
Or take your ass to Harbor Freight and spend $10 on a 100-yard tape.
Right. Something. Actually measure that shit. And we do this, on our indoor pistol range. We have tape down where we actually went and measured. Well, here's the 3, here's the 5, here's the 7, here's the 10, blah 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 blah. So here's a good clue. If you're going out to the 100-yard range at West Shore over here, there were target stands put out at 25, 50, and 100. So if you put your shit in the second target stand, it's at the 50. If you bring your own target stand and put that son of a bitch somewhere between the 50 and closer, the 50 and third or further away, it ain't a 50-yard zero. So you're all screwed up. Jordan Bradley zeros at 109 yards. That's awesome. That's probably because his bags are so supportive that he can get that extra 9 yards. He's got such a supportive bag. I heard Jordan was the most supportive of all the bags. Many people have said that Jordan's bag was the most. I'm doing my Trumpisms. This is great. So just that's one of those things. But man, don't be coming out with your shit rattling off the top of your gun. Know you're down in distance. I sound like a football coach. That's pretty important stuff. The other thing is people seem to have this version of bullet trajectory where for some reason it's a straight line that just falls, right? It just does this. Bullet trajectory is an arc. Dare I say a parabolic arc, right? So
hey, we're not supposed to do math on the show. You promised me we wouldn't do math on the show. Calculus is definitely off the fucking table.
Okay. I can't spell calculus, so we're fine. But bullet trajectory is not a straight line that drops off at the end, right? Bullet trajectory is an arc. So at any given point, your point of impact will be lower or higher than your point of aim. It just will be. So it's going to go, ooh, not, that's a great visual aid for those at home.
Yeah, I'm sure the people listening to this on the podcast are just enthralled by that visual representation of an arc. Yeah, or audible representation of an arc. There you go.
Versus, yeah. Anyway, so my point is simply this: pay attention to that kind of thing too. Know that you have. It's fucking Kim. I gotta stop looking at the chat every time with this motherfucker. Visual aids is my stage name. Yeah. So just keep this in mind. I know. This one's going in the shit box real quick.
Oh God.
Oh my Lord. Let's see. Oh, but we were on don't be in such a damn hurry, right?
Yeah.
So God forbid you sit down at the bench, you set up your freaking bags or your rest, or shout out to the Sprad bag. Set up your freaking 2x4 with a rug rolled up over it. Set up your Mountain Dew jug that you're gonna lay your rifle barrel out front of. Do some shit. Set that shit up. See if you can get your point of aim in your scope naturally without having to tweak your body all around to make it happen. And then maybe dry fire your shot process a few times. God forbid. Maybe, just maybe, make sure that you can really get a clean sight picture from where you're sitting versus where the target is. Do you need to add or take away elevation from your bags or your rest? Are you shooting off a bipod? Are you shooting off a rest with some bags, like sandbags or something like that? Are you shooting from a lead sled? All these things come into play. But the bottom line is you better get real good and comfortable, and you better get relaxed. Take a nice freaking, several 7, 8, 9 dry fires. Then put a round in your gun. Put 5 rounds in your gun. I don't care, depending on what kind of gun. Shoot a 5-round group. Relax. Put your spotting scope on that 5-round group so you don't have to get your ass up from the bench and run down there every time. See where your point of impact versus point of aim is. And, fix it accordingly. Take your damn time. Be a professional about it. Approach it like you're really serious about the shit coming out of the end of that gun.
Yeah.
You're not going to zero your shit up in 20 minutes after work before the sun goes down. You're just not. What you could do is could be able to say, ah, damn it, I went to put that in the truck. I banged the scope. Let me go quick, sit up there and shoot 3 on the 2-inch gong that's up at 100 and just make sure I'm still where I think I should be. Jesus God almighty.
Stop reading the chat. He's luring you in. He's luring you in like a van that says free candy. Just stop. Don't get in the van, Kent.
Jesus Christ. Oh, love language.
For For those of you listening to the
This is
podcast,
why you gotta watch
guys,
live.
you don't know what you're
missed
missing
it.
by not
You
watching the
just
show on
missed
YouTube.
God almighty, love language for the blind. So anyway, take your time. And then let's see, what other things could I impart upon you? Just generally have a good attitude and take the approach of like, I'm gonna get this eventually figured out. If you're 6 inches low at your desired point of aim, point of impact, don't immediately go back to the bench, sit right down, and dial 20 ugga-duggas of elevation because you think that's going to fix it and stand there and chasing the clicks all day. Sit your ass down and send another one and see if it happens again. And if it does, if you start printing 2 or maybe 3 5-round groups in the same general area, hey, man, now look at the center of those 10 or those 15 rounds and move the center of those rounds up by the amount of milrads or MOA that the scope calls for, which, by the way, it's going to say some shit like 1/4 MOA at 100 yards, which means that you're at 50. It's not 1/4. It's what? Cut in half. So it's 1/8, right? So to move an inch, you got to go 8 clicks. Hey, math, that's a thing. And then also understand that, generally speaking, most optics that come from the factory are factory. I don't want to call it zeroed, but factory at their zero stop point. So in other words,
it's mechanically zero.
Yeah. There's no windage dialed in or elevation dialed in from the factory, unless some jack whistle got it out of the box at some demo show and turned all them clicks just to mess with it.
Yeah.
So, this has been we could do 6 hours on zero, but this is just one of those things where, I mean, man, if you don't know what your holdovers and hold unders are, if you don't know what your offset is, if you don't know what your zero looks like, if you haven't held yourself to this level of standard, I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be dudes that listen to this, I hope anyway, that are honest with themselves. And I know a few really good pistol shooters that don't have their pistol zero dialed in as much as they should, right?
Yeah.
I know dudes that can burn down all kinds of go fast drills and cannot hit any level of acceptable accuracy standing slow fire with a pistol. I don't know, man.
I do want to bring up one more point before we come up to that magical time of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to zeroing, dear Christ, I know we've said it on the show before. When it comes to zeroing red dots, it is not zeroed if you slave it off of your iron sight picture.
Oh yeah,
it's not. No, not even close. Iron sights. It could by happenstance, but
right.
Sure as shit, I'm not going to line up my sights, zero the red dot, and call it good and call it zeroed. Right. I'm going to call it bore-sighted maybe, because that's about the equivalent. I'll be on paper. I'll be minute of barn
from the inside.
If I'm locked in it, yes.
Right.
And blindfolded, so I can't try to aim.
Yeah. Backup irons and red dots on pistols are meant to be 2 separate sighting systems. They're not meant to be slaved. It's 2020. Are we even allowed to? The Democrats are soon going to be the president and take over the world and shit. Are we even allowed to say slaved anymore?
Yes, but only if you pay the taxes for the free speech.
Right. That. Yeah. Don't slave the thing.
And yes, I said pay the taxes for the free speech.
I know. I heard you. Sure did. Yeah. So don't do those things. Just generally, man, have a freaking, solid plan for your zeroing expedition. Honest to God, it is okay to go to the range and do nothing but zero a gun.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Right. And if you're a pistol shooter, for pistol practice, there's nothing in the world at all wrong with occasionally throwing up a paster and shooting a walkback drill and seeing if you can keep that shit on or about the paster all the way back to goddamn, dare I say, 15, 20, or 25 yards. Nothing wrong with doing that at all. Just one of those things you might should do. Which means at 3, you're going to be aiming a little high, and which means at 25, you're going to be aiming a little low. 10, you're going to be right on, blah, 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 blah. It's just one of them things that we should learn how to do because it's important. We should know where the bullets that come out of the things with the triggers and the boom sounds are going. So, yeah,
guys. I mean, it sums it up nicely. You are responsible for knowing every detail about your equipment, and your tool set. It's that simple. You are responsible. So hold yourself to the standard. Hold your equipment to the standard, and conduct yourself accordingly. Your mileage may vary, but it's okay. Understand what the expectation is and try to reach that standard.
Yeah, man. Well, we have, I think we've done this has been a good little, hour and a half primer.
Hour and a half primer. We beat a TED Talk by 3 times.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much more that I want to dive into about this, but honest to God, we'll have to do we'll do 5 or 6 more guests, and we'll do a zero part 2 kind of a discussion.
Zero part 2. You still suck.
Yeah. But listen, dudes, bottom line being, if you need some help with this stuff, www.greenmountaindefense.com/training. That's for if you're in my area or not, because I'm going to be doing some traveling. Love to have you out to a class. Hashtag run your gun, not your mouth. Whoop, whoop. We're happy to have you come out. And we can show you this shit in person, because it's all just bullshit on the interwebs until you sees it for reals and does the thing with the thing. So that's important to go do. So I'd love to have you come out to a class. If you can't reach me for whatever reason, or you don't think I'm famous enough, I'm hosting a bunch of famouser people over the next year. So get in on my hosted spots as well for Timmy Heron and Jedi and Bill Rapier and a couple of these other dudes. So that'll be cool. And if you really can't get to me, I don't know, get to Apache Solutions down in Yacketville, get to Vigor Training up here in PA, get to 360 Performance up here in PA, get to Evolution Trading Solutions up here. There's a lot of squared away human beings on planet Earth who can take you out to a range. There's 2 dudes right here on this show. If you get to go out and shoot with Cam or get to shoot with Jordan, I guarantee you those dudes can show you a thing or two about putting a thing in a thing and pressing a thing and making a hole where you want it. Way the fuck over there. So maybe you should learn to do that. I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't. I don't care either way. But what I don't want to see you doing is half-ass zeroing your stuff. And these days, there's a lot of this talk on the Instagram, Facebook spaces about the Boogaloo and the Civil War and all this stuff that all these dudes are preparing for, so they say. And
oh, God.
Well, I know, but if you're an 8 MOA shooter with a 60 MOA waistline, bro, stop it with this Boogaloo shit, please. Let's just stop it. Just stop it. Hashtag t-shirt day. Yeah. 8 MOA shooter, 60 MOA waistline. I like that one too. But in all seriousness, man, if you're relying on this shit for real, if you really are thinking hey, this rifle is the sword of Excalibur, this is Luke's lightsaber, this is the most important tool in my tool chest, and the only effort you gave zero in it was one time at 100 yards on a pie plate, then please shut the fuck up. Because you didn't zero nothing.
You think you're Han Solo, but your zero says Stormtrooper.
Yeah, something like that, really. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about it. But come out and get it figured.
Yeah, get the training, ask the questions. Because you know what? Last I checked, we've got not only a Facebook group, but an email address. Sling'N@gmail.com. Kent and I both monitor it. We're happy to take your questions and educate you as best we can. Hell, maybe you'll even give us an idea to do another show.
Yeah, man. And, if nothing else, send us more stage names because Cam has been filling us up with stage names tonight.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, God.
Luke's lightsaber. I'm surprised he didn't go with the Force.
Yeah. Love language of the blind is up there in the funnier things that he's ever said to me. That's high on the list. But yeah, man, get out, get it figured out, get some training, get some help. And if you need the tools, man, oh man, do we have the affiliate links to help you get them. www.greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links. My goodness, we've got primary arms. We've got primary arms. We've got primary arms. And did I mention primary arms? I'm just happy with them because they're nice to us. And Justin's a fine human being. So support primary arms. Support Brownells. Support any of the other smaller, ammo manufacturers and different things that we have on there. We've got the guys from Gorilla Ammo. We've got all these little niche companies that are making individual little products, and we've got the big names too. But man, I'm gonna tell you what, there's the stuff out there, and if you're gonna go buy gun stuff anyway, might as well buy it and make us throw us a couple dollars in the process, so we can get rid of our stage names and never have to be on stage again because we don't want to strip anymore. So.
We're gonna keep Cam on the corner though, right?
Yeah, probably. greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links is where you can find all that good stuff. Let's see what else. There's some articles getting posted up on the Green Mountain Defense website. TJ is not posting articles anywhere else anymore, so he's going to start submitting them to me, and I'm going to put them on the Green Mountain Defense website. He doesn't know that yet. I just told him live on the show. We're gonna take all.
Surprise, I guess.
Right. Surprise. But I mean, why in the hell are we helping anybody else generate inorganic content when we could generate our own and keep it in-house? But either way, from time to time, your boys tend to write some really good articles. In all seriousness, TJ did some really good articles for the Gunpoint blog. You should go look those up because there's some good shit, including why small the back carry will get you killed in the streets. It really will, by the way. Honest to God. The minute you put on a small to back holster and walk into the streets, you will die. That's just the end of it.
And I've even heard that if you step on a crack, you will in fact break your mother's back. It's a thing.
Right, you will. Let's see. I've been recently getting some help from the missus, and I've been stepping up the game on the socials. So at Green Mountain Defense on the Insta and the Facebook and the Ugrams and the Snapchats. Not on Snapchat yet, but maybe someday. Might do an OnlyFans. Love language.
I mean, if ammo prices keep going the way they're going, yeah, we all will.
Right. And other than that, man, we would be remiss if we didn't mention some of our other friends. Kerry Davis, Dark Angel Medical. Go buy medical gear from him. Let him know the Sling'N podcast sent you in the notes. His discounts on his site are way deeper right now than our code is, so I'm not even going to throw out our code. Just go darkangelmedical.com. Man, if you haven't trained with any of the people, we're at 61 episodes. Probably 45 famous professional firearms trainers have been on this show. Somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe 40. I don't know. But go through these episodes and get on their calendars, dude. Go see what Brian Hill's up to. Go see what Eric Tweet's up to. Go see what Spencer Keepers is up to. Go see what Tatiana Whitlock's up to. I'm not going to run through the whole list. But, man, if you guys are not training with these people, you are leaving yourself in the lurch. Training is more important than ever these days. And I got to be honest with you, with the ammo budget and the prices and all the craziness being the way it is, you can't really afford to just go out and blow 1,000 rounds on a range weekend dicking around with your buddies anymore.
Nope, you got to make it count.
You should probably make that shit count, and you should probably do it under the watchful eye of a professional trainer. So we're happy to help set you up with whomever, right? So if you're hearing the sound of my voice and you're in Arkansas or Kansas, depending on how you say that, and you don't know who the hell's coming and when, by goddamn it, email us and I'll help you figure it out. I guarantee you that somebody who's been on our show is going to end up within a 2 to 3 hour drive radius of you at some point on planet Earth. I'm almost positive of it. If I had more time on my hands, I would make a website dedicated to the Sling'N podcast that was specifically developed to send you to training classes from around the country that we could help figure that out for you. But I don't have that time. But what I do have the time to do is put up posts in all my various Facebook groups and all the places where all the professional instructors gather and say, hey, dudes, who's going to be in this town? Somebody's going to put their hand up in the air. And then I will connect the two of you, and you will go get good training. So, yeah. And go see what Cam is up to on his YouTube channel. He does not have OnlyFans or Snapchat Premium. Check out his...
Are we sure he doesn't?
He says he does, but he doesn't. Believe me, I would know. Check out at Hasey494. Speaking of places that you can get good information on reticles and scopes and optic reviews and zeros and all that stuff. Cam's a serious and honest to God subject matter expert. We dick around a lot, but man, oh man, I'm going to tell you right now, when I have a question about some of the shit that we just started talking about, I pick up the phone and call my boy, and he helps me with it. And he gives me two options, and I go out and I tell him which one worked best, and he's proud of me for doing my own research. Look at that, right? So, yeah, do all that stuff. If you need something from us, let us know. Our training calendar is growing. The network is growing with people that we've had on the show. The show in and of itself is growing in downloads and industry interest and stuff like that. If you're hearing the sound of our voice and you need help with something in the gun sphere, chances are we're going to be able to point you in the right direction, and we'd be happy to do so. TJ, you got anything else for these dudes or dudes and dudettes?
I guess I can give it a shot. So, folks, as always, we appreciate you joining us live on the chat. If you're hearing the sound of my voice and this is your first time hearing the podcast, if you like what you heard, tell your friends, tell your family members, send them on over. We can be found on any of your favorite podcast players, of course, here live on YouTube at Sling'N Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Sling'N Podcast there as well. And as I mentioned before, you can always reach out to us at slingandleadpodcast@gmail.com. Kent and I both monitor our Facebook page and our email inbox. So we're happy to take any comments or questions that you might have and address them here on the show. If you're new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.